It's your boy. All right, so now we're back. We're going to do the 10 Commandments of the Mafia. Now, some of these are actually said at the ceremony when you get straightened out. And they're said to wise guys on their way to become made guys. You know, those are wise guys, made guys. But so, number one is you can never introduce yourself to another wise guy. So you could grow up together. I actually, for people that, think they, know everything, but I've been at a lot of introductions, a lot. Forget about ceremonies, how many I've stood outside of, but introductions. So what happens is we can know each other our whole lives. I got straightened out 10 years ago. You got straightened out yesterday. This particular one, I'll tell you a situation about that I was in that I had to go to. A neighborhood guy who would run into people every day get straightened out. So he had to be introduced as a friend. Mia Cosa Nostra, right? And Michael Francis is actually the only person you've ever on here heard say that, that's how you introduce it. So to me, it was funny because in the 90s, even if guys were half Sicilian, they would always claim to be Nobili Don. Guys, for some reason, they would, the certain fractions of Cosa Nostra would frown upon the Sicilian fraction. And I used to get my balls broken 5 times a day. I was Sicilian proud. That's how I was. And a lot of guys wouldn't, even though I know they were half Sicilian. So hearing a Nobili Don guy, they would have to say that. That's a Sicilian saying. It's Sicilian dialect, everything about the Mia Cosa Nostra, meaning like you have to have a wise guy introduce another wise guy to a wise guy once them two are introduced, right? So this particular one was Carmine Bull's brother, Mike Yagnell, one of the nicest guys that I've ever met in life on the street. Bruno's, I think it is. It used to be called Lenora. Now, Lenora back in the day would be a spot that we would, probably the only place in Howard Beach that we went because they had outside drinking. Meaning when they closed, we'd go outside in the summertime. He had chairs set up, the owner of Lenora, and we would sit out there after they closed and drink while they were cleaning up, getting the place done. The owner never broke our balls. We would stay there till 3, 4 in the morning on a Tuesday. It didn't matter, So we go there one night because they're introducing Mikey to everybody within my crew and the 101st Avenue crew. And I remember I was one of the only guys there that weren't a wise guy. And Blaze was sitting next to Sally Gambino on one side. And Mike came in and Nora was all wise guys. Everybody that was straightened out was there to get introduced to Mike as a friend now. And I remember Blaze going, "Excuse us, Hootie." And I moved out of the way, and you're supposed to walk off to the side, but they were sitting right there, and I was sitting across, and, they all leaned in, and he introduced, Mike to another wise guy, and that's the first time I heard a Nobili Don Sicilian say that. And that was the first time I've actually heard it out loud. To me, that was out loud. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be whispered, or you're supposed to walk off to the side. But the whole place was wise guys but me. And I was there. That was one particular occasion. I was there during an introducing. Not an introduction, an introducing. And it was me, Cosa Nostra. It's just, now he's a friend now. Now he was a friend in that life. Now he's a friend to you in this life. And that's a brotherhood. That's supposed to be more than a friend. And that's what that is. That's how you do that. And you can know each other your whole life, but you're reborn when you get straightened out. You know what I mean? I heard that's not a particular one that's actually said at the ceremony. I know usually I heard it said afterwards. Remember, never introduce yourself as a wise guy. But supposedly you're supposed to know that already because you're a dingbat. Supposedly if you don't, it's like, what are you, an idiot? You never walk up to another wise guy and introduce yourself. That's a no-no. So that's one that still stands in the American Cosa Nostra. Number 2, and this is a rule, this is said everywhere, I don't know how it's said at the ceremony. It's been said. It hasn't been said, I've heard different ways, but this is said, and this is for associates as well, not just male guys. Never look at a friend's wife or daughter. Now, in the life here in America, see, these are Sicilian, right? So in the life here in America, you don't look at a girlfriend. You don't look at a gumata. You don't see or date a wise guy or a street guy's ex-girlfriend. And of course, you look at nobody's daughter. That gets broken. I mean, that's one of the strongest rules. If you ever heard me on here talking about it, I've seen more people, die in the streets over women than over money. And then respect is the next one. Those are like the two top things that people would get clipped over. It used to be a thing where guys didn't get clipped over money. You had to be a real nuisance, to hear about that on the street. Never allow yourself to be seen with cops. Was that a rule here? Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a situation, because here I know, in your immediate family, you can't have somebody who's a law enforcement or gay, or you can't get proposed. I've seen it done, but that's what I grew up hearing. I had a gay relative in my wedding party with wise guys, drug dealers. I didn't care. I had a lot of respect for this relative, and I still do. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in it to be a rule. I've seen it being broken. I've seen so many rules being broken to get a guy straightened out. They would do anything. But cops was the number one thing. If you had a relative in the immediate family, brother, sister, brother-in-law, uncle, they even went outside a little bit to uncles and aunts, you couldn't get straightened out. And because in Austria, back in Sicily, in the Mafia, you couldn't have law enforcement throughout your whole family. So that's where lines are touched. I've never heard that brought up. You're supposed to know that already at the ceremony. Now, I was told this for years, and I wasn't a male guy. Stay out of the bars and the clubs. We go to stories where bosses and captain close bars down to sit and drink for 2-3 days, the old school guys. But it was some crews like Joe Messina, when he had to no social clubs, all social clubs closed, no weddings, no funerals. He was a big guy that didn't want his guys in bars and nightclubs. So was it certain guys, but that wasn't part of the rules when they gave them out, when you were straightened out. But it was big in Sicily. Number 5, always be available. That's one that's said at every ceremony. Your wife is in the bed at the hospital giving birth to your first child. You get a phone call. You better get to where you have to be. The life comes before everything. You got a meeting, and you're supposed to be at that meeting at 12 o'clock. You better be there 15 minutes early to watch everybody arrive. I don't care how big your position is in that life. Early is on time is late. I've seen guys get chased. I've seen guys catch a bad beat, and I've seen guys get shelved for not making appointments. You miss an appointment in the life when you're straightened out, that's a no-no. If you're around a guy and you're an associate, I've seen associates get beatings, get chased, get a penalty, $50,000. You got to make appointments, and you got to be available. If your father's on his deathbed and they call, better say your goodbyes and go now. You're not going to get to see him pass because you got to get to. It could be over nothing, a question that your captain has, that the underboss had, no matter how far up the ladder you go. Always be available for Cosa Nostra. That's a big one. They actually say that at every ceremony. Never be late or miss an appointment. That falls right into number 5. When you're a wise guy, like I said, I've seen it done with associates, captains, everybody. But when you get straightened out, they always tell you what I just said. On time is late, early is on time. Late, the biggest sign of disrespect that you can give anybody in Cosa Nostra. Do these rules exist today? No. Were they obeying by these rules when I was in the street? No. But them's the rules. That is a big rule still in Cosa Nostra. So that reached over here from Sicily. Okay, this is a big one. Number 7, wives must be treated with respect. 100%. I can't tell you the beefs that I had with my friends after they got straightened out over this one thing. Now, I never disrespected my wife. Meaning, like, your wife's at home, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids. You didn't parade your gomada around. You didn't fall in love with your girlfriend that you had on the side. I wasn't one of those guys anyway, but you didn't go to restaurants that you would eat at with your friends or other Cosa Nostra guys, or if you ever took your wife there with your gomada or your girlfriend. You don't do that. That is where that comes into respect here in the United States. In Sicily, it might mean other things, like you don't put your hands on your wife, but here, if you put your hands on your wife, her father can't say nothing, her brother can't say nothing, her cousins can't say nothing, because now that you married her, she belongs to you. So what goes on in your house is your house. Even in Cosa Nostra, if a boss or a captain comes to your house and they're a higher level than you, they still treat you you're the king of that castle. If you get up and give your seat as a guest to a captain or a maid guy, if you're below them, then that's your business. But most of the time, a maid guy or a captain or an under will always treat your house that you are the king of that house. So a little bit how it translates differently here in the United States. When asked a question by a maid guy or higher, you always tell the truth. That's a big rule there. That's a big rule here. I mean, I used to drive guys, and I already knew the outcome. A lot of times when we were going to sit-downs, the guy that I'd be going with or taking, or I knew was going to a sit-down, and I was asked to be there, I knew if the guy had a rabbi in the room. That's what we would call guys that protected us. Who was my rabbi? Like we would say, man, that guy used to get away with murder because so-and-so was his rabbi. That's the guy that speaks up for him. So I would know that guy had a friend in the room, a rabbi. But he wouldn't. And I would say to him, whatever you do not lie. You could be 100% wrong. It could be something that you could get whacked over. But if you tell the truth, there's nothing they can do to you. Don't get me wrong. A lot of guys will wait a little while and clip you. Who knows? Things like that do happen. But at that moment, you go in and you tell the truth, no matter what the offense is, they don't hold it against you because you told the truth. It's just like you ever get caught with the U.S. government, don't ever lie. Perjury is a motherfucker. It's going to jail for the dumbest shit. If you got immunity or you're talking on the record, let it out. It's all bullshit. Lying to the government, you never do. The same thing with Cosa Nostra. I mean, I went to a sit-down once with another maid guy with me that we were in business together, and we were sitting down with a captain and another captain and probably other maid guys in there that didn't like me mostly and didn't like his way of business because he was liked by everybody. Maid guy that I grew up with. He was loved by everybody. He was just a nice guy, not me. But I gave him so many ways to put what we were doing that he never put on record. I didn't have to put on record without lying. But he went in there, and we used to call him Abe Lincoln because he was like the only guy that never lied. But we didn't necessarily lie. We just didn't volunteer the truth, and they called that lying in the life. So he just went in there and spilled everything. And it was like, I was sitting through the whole thing, and like, you got nothing to say? And I'm like, he said it all. I got nothing to say. So I didn't even have to, confess to what we were doing. He did it all. I just didn't volunteer it. It's not lying. To them it is. To me it's not. You got to obey by your rules. I don't got to volunteer any information, but you never lie. It's one thing you don't do. You can come up with a million other ways to say it, but don't lie. That's a big rule here too. Money cannot be touched if it belongs to somebody else. That's how it translates into seeing here. It's if you're holding on to somebody else's money, I don't care if you got money at home. If you got money coming here, wherever we are, you do not touch that. Go into that person's personal money and use it for something. That money belongs to them. You do not touch it. If you're picking money up and it belongs to a wise guy or a bookmaker, or if you're doing a job for somebody, you do not touch that money. You hand it right over to who it belongs, or you hold it, or just put yourself in a position not to have somebody else's money. But that's a big rule here too, as well. And last but not least, people who can't be a member. Now, did those rules get broken? Absolutely. Absolutely. I know a lot of guys, mothers weren't Italian. Father was only 50% Italian. We know guys that were only 25% Italian. Sicilians make it to where you are only Sicilian. Because the Chamorro and the Sicilian, they're two separate, first of all, they speak two separate languages. They're not as organized as the Sicilian Mafia, up north. So there's all different types of families. Mafia is Sicilian. The Chamorro is Napolitan, right? So it doesn't make sense, right? Al Capone was a boss, but he made himself boss, right? He was Johnny Torrio's driver. Johnny Torrio was Sicilian, if I'm not, right? He was his driver. Al Capone was never straightened out, but he named himself boss. So when people say Al Capone was the biggest thing in the mafia, no, he was, because he wasn't the mafia. He was just a guy who named himself boss in the Midwest. Al Capone was a guy that lived in Coney Island, was going to get killed, and they shipped him to be Johnny Torrio's driver. End of story. So you can't be a member. He was Napolitan. He wasn't Sicilian. I think he was Calabrese as well. That's just off the top of my head. But those are the 10 commandments of Cosa Nostra. And a lot of that applied to being straightened out. And if you were in a crew with made guys, acting captains, you weren't straightened out, you had to obey by those rules as well. A lot of them. So a lot of these 10 commandments of Cosa Nostra, I could just spin off the top of my head. When I seen the translation from Sicilian into American, and I seen that years ago, and it was like 2008, 2009. I think it was when I first came home from the state bid that I really seen it transferred from Sicilian to America, to American. And I was like, these are all the same, that mostly all of them mean something today in Cosa Nostra. So that's the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll do a Q&A during the week. It's a holiday weekend coming up. Enjoy the holiday weekend. And I'll set notice during the holiday for when we'll do a Q&A on what's been going on with the episode so far. I hope you're liking them. Nothing but truth and good content. That's all I got for you guys. Jindan, stay up.